Again, for the opportunity to follow up, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chairman, you mentioned 15 of 20, was it investigators, are no longer at the SEC?
15 of, I don't have all the position levels or anything like that, but about 15 of the 20 enforcement employees are, who were involved in one way or another with Madoff over a many year period off and on are gone.
The other ones were examinators?
Examiners, yes.
How many examiners are gone?
I understand that 19 out of about 36 are gone. These are not, this isn't a science, because some people touch these matters very peripherally. Some people more so. Some were in supervisory positions. Some were quite junior. And frankly, that was one of our issues, I think, with respect to the quality of the supervision of these examinations.
The question that really begs for an answer is where they went. Are they working for other enforcement agencies now? Are they working for the companies they were supposed to regulate or enforce before? Are they retired and receiving pensions while the people that Madoff screwed are busted for the rest of their lives? I mean, what can we get a rundown of where they went?
I don't know the answer to that. We do know where employees go for a period of 2 years after they leave the SEC. They're required to report where they've been employed or who they've been retained by. But I don't know that we have any right beyond that to know where they are.
Well, I think there's a necessity to know where they went. It's like letting a pedophile slink out the door or change neighborhoods makes everything okay. I think we're dealing with the same type of a problem here, and I think it is important if the people that allowed Madoff's fraud to perpetuate are now at other regulatory agencies. I think we ought to know that, and the other agencies ought to be put on notice. If they're working for companies who they used to regulate, I think we ought to know that too.
Congressman, I guess I would like to disagree with you. These aren't bad people. In some cases, they were people who were very junior and were not adequately trained or supervised in what they were doing. In some cases, they were being pulled from one project to another project because the flavor of the day perhaps was market timing and late trading by investment companies, and this is highlighted in the Inspector General's report. There are a lot of reasons the SEC failed in Madoff, and I've been highly transparent about those reasons. We've published all the Inspector General reports. We have posted on our website all of the actions we've taken to try to improve the agency's operations, to try to prevent something like this from ever happening again. But I don't think we have to vilify these people. There are lots of reasons for this failure. Some were people who didn't do a good job, without a doubt, but we can't say that about everybody.
Well, there's people that are out $50 or $70 billion that might feel a little bit differently. Maybe they haven't had the same sensitivity classes, but they think there needs to be accountability for bad conduct, for misconduct, and maybe criminal misconduct. I read the audits, and as I said before, and you acknowledge, they are scathing. And so the signal, when nobody is held accountable for what's done, if they're allowed to quit, and not be held accountable because they left, the signal is you don't have to do your job right. If you don't do your job and the taxpayers get billed $50 to $70 billion, we'll talk about how insensitive it could be to point a finger at anybody in the agency here. And if you just leave, everything will be okay and it will be forgotten.
Look, I think people have paid a very large price through the Inspector General's reports. I'm not suggesting that's enough. We have a disciplinary process. It is coming to conclusion. It is pursuant to the Federal Civil Service rules. I agree very much in accountability, which is one reason why we have talked so much over the last year and a half about Madoff, why the Inspector General reports are out there. He was given free rein to do whatever investigation was necessary, and we've been very transparent about it.
My only point is saying that 15 of the 20 investigators who were involved in this, and stealing's stealing even if the government's in on the job, believe it or not. I mean, some people think if the government's involved, it makes it okay. Stealing's still stealing even if the government's involved in it. And I think saying that 15 of 20 of these investigators and 19 of the 36 examiners are no longer with the agency doesn't make what they did okay and mean that they can't be held accountable,
Well,
and that we shouldn't know where they are now.
I agree. It certainly doesn't make what happened okay. I'm not sure how we'd hold them accountable under the law if they've left the agency and they haven't violated any law.
Well,
I'm happy to think that through further.
maybe some of the 1,200 lawyers that file 600 cases a year can find time between filing a half a case every year to research that a little bit and see how other law enforcement agencies handle that. When somebody leaves a job after maybe they've embezzled money or helped somebody embezzle money, how leaving the job just doesn't change the fact that they've done something very wrong, and there needs to be some accountability for it. And they have ways of bringing those people to justice in the private sector. It may seem relatively unheard of in the public sector, but in the private sector, they seem quite capable of getting people like that and bringing them to justice and holding them accountable.
I hear you, and we'll certainly think further about that. I don't know of any evidence or suggestion that anybody was embezzling at the SEC or aiding somebody knowingly embezzling, if that's a suggestion.
Well, they certainly by their, what would you want to call it, indifference or ineptitude, let the Madoff fraud perpetuate for a decade. I think everybody with a half a brain in the financial industry knew that. That's why none of your big money managers or hedge fund managers got caught. They read the Barron's expose, front page story, what a fraud this guy is. But for 10 years, the SEC did nothing about it. I mean, you read the investigation just like I did, and I'm just saying that there needs to be consequences for that kind of behavior. And you told us that you're going to see that eventually we're going to hear some justice being served in the future as you go through the proper course of doing this. But I'm just making this statement that 15 people who were culpable, probably to some degree, 19 of 36 who are culpable to some degree, should not be unnamed or forgotten just because they left the agency. I think we need to know, as I stated, where they are, if they're with agencies they used to regulate, if they're in charge of overseeing at other agencies now where the blunder could be repeated, and if they just retired and they're collecting pensions at the expense of the people who got bilked. Thank you,
Mr. Posey, I yielded you 3 minutes of my